Hopefully you can all hear me and see me. Just to let you know that yesterday, when there was a webinar on yesterday at around this time, the weather was really bad and the storm affected people's internet. So if we lose you today or you're in and out, it may well be because the weather's still bad. So don't panic. As you've already been told, make sure you put any specific questions in the Q&A. Group chat is really to share things, comment on things, and that's for everybody to read, okay? So any specific problems with your technology or anything specific to your centre, put it in the Q&A and somebody will get back to you. We do monitor that all the time. So, okay, welcome if you haven't been to one of these before. My name's Julie Hughes. I just aim really to give you an opportunity to share, network, and hopefully share some ideas with you. But first today, I want to talk to you about next week's webinar, for which we've got a special guest. We had Kat Howard on a couple of weeks ago, which was great. And next week we've got Chris Curtis. If you haven't heard of Chris Curtis, he's an English teacher, head of department, author of the marvellous book, How to Teach English, which I can thoroughly recommend. It's really worth reading. Some great ideas. And he's a big believer in sharing practical ways to tackle difficult problems in the classroom. Now, when I said to him, what would you like to cover, Chris? He said, well, how about we give people a choice? So he's happy to do either non-fiction writing, paragraphing, developing better readers under exam conditions, which I thought was an interesting one, or writing for effect, or indeed two of those. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little poll up on screen. Well, I'm not, somebody is. And then you're going to vote. So if you'd like now to think about which one you'd like him to cover next week, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes and we'll see which one wins. It'll be interesting, won't it? So far, it looks like non-fiction writing is ahead. Developing better readers under exam conditions is pulling ahead. It's like a horse race, isn't it? Yeah, that is pulling ahead with 40%. So if you haven't voted, cast your votes now. It looks like paragraphing is the weakest, although he does have some fantastic ideas on paragraphing and on sentence structure in his book, so I can't really recommend that. He's got some unusual ways with paragraphing. But it looks like developing better readers under exam conditions is the winner so far. Okay, great. Well, I think we can go ahead. If I tick that and broadcast the result, it will show us the results there. So let's do that. I don't know quite what happens there. But it looks like we're going for developing better readers under exam conditions. Okay, so thanks. We can take that poll away now. Thank you very much. Thank you. And hi, Jenny. Jenny has put hi, Julie. So Jenny's always with us. She's one of my regulars. So lovely to see you again. Right, let's look at what we're going to do this week then. It's a literature focus. Obviously, here's the usual agenda. If you haven't been with us before, I do a quick update on the feedback from previous weeks, look at some good online resources, share some of the ideas of mine, and then we have time to discuss and share. Okay, so let's move on. Let's look at feedback first then. Now, what I've done here is to look at the feedback from last week, and these are literally copied and pasted. So I'm going to go through them in order, just to cover what I am going to cover and what I can't cover and why I can't cover it, okay? So the first one was several people asked how to re-engage students in remote learning. Now, obviously, that's something I'm facing myself. I am a teacher. I'm going to cover something a little bit later on that has been my saviour, really. One thing I would say is, having gone back to school this week, that having chatted to the students, the one thing that didn't work was just a PowerPoint put on screen. It was okay if it had it was a Loom one and it had the teacher talking to them, but just a PowerPoint that they had to follow slides, they just weren't engaging with. And I found that the most engagement I got was when I switched to quizzes and multi-choice quizzes, because students could do that easily. They felt a sense of achievement and I could see their result. So I'm going to show you later on in this session some ideas for how to make multi-choice questions actually quite meaty and engaging. So that was an idea there. The second one, thinking about facing the specific challenges of teaching learners post-lockdown, is something we will be thinking about going forward. Obviously, as an example, we'll do all we can to help you. But it is something that we can't really plan for until we know what post-lockdown looks like. So I'm leaving that for the time being. 19th century lit remote learning if the situation continues in September. Yeah, again, fully appreciate. I have got an idea for that coming in the later slides. But again, that's something that we need to think about when we know what the situation is. I thought this was an amusing one, how to de-waffle pupils' writing, extended pupils' ideas. Now, I'm not going to suggest I've got the golden bullet for that one, but what I did do that was the most successful on that was actually having been frustrated by getting students to cross things out and modelling on the board. And still, I've got a student who waffles on, is I actually told them to cut down in word number. I'd say you've done, 1,500 words there, I want 3. No, seriously, I would say cut it down from 100 to 50 and see if you can do it. And actually, that was the only thing that really worked for me. How to model answers for inspector calls. Now, I'm not going to cover that in the session, but there is, if that was something that's new to us, on our website, there is actually a PowerPoint that I made that is intended for students, and it is literally how to build up an answer, and it has a model paragraphs in it, so it's well worth going to our website. And I think the link is later on in this PowerPoint. The final one, somebody asked, are writing frames useful or not? Are they too repetitive? I started off in my teaching career doing lots of writing frames and lots of P paragraphs. I've completely moved away from them myself personally. I find writing frames a little bit too restrictive, and I do find them repetitive. If people would like to put in the group chat whether they agree with that or not, I'm fully appreciating that's my view. But I am going to talk to you today about how to value students' contributions a little bit more, and hopefully that brings them away from a writing frame and gives them a little bit more confidence. So that's what I'm going to say. I mean, yes, I don't disagree, Rosie. You've put they're great for weaker learners. I agree. I think when we had coursework, there was a little bit too much of that. And I'm finding that without a sentence starter, my students are just sitting there blankly. So what I'm trying to do is find ways to give them confidence in their own knowledge and allowing them to write it a little bit more organically. So I will give you some ideas on that today. So yeah, totally agree. For early stage EAL learners, yeah, absolutely, and good for weaker learners. Yeah, I agree. But I think higher up the scale, I think they get a little bit repetitive and weaken their original thought. So okay, let's have a quick check-in question. Oh no, I'm sorry, I haven't finished these, have I? Sorry, too busy there with the writing frame. Plea for help here. Can anybody help? Somebody wanted advice on how departments plan for language if taught separately for literature. Now, I'm happy not on here, but in another forum, I'm happy to talk to somebody about what my school does. Actually, they literally separate it down the middle, and one teacher does language and one does literature. But if anybody can help with that, please come forward and I will put you in touch with the person who asked that. Journey's End, again, people are pleading for Journey's End, and I don't teach it, so I don't have much there in my arsenal. The final one, somebody had put on Twitter this week that they were thinking of teaching the Empress. And I think that's brilliant and marvellous. And I just wanted to say that in terms of support, we're halfway through a scheme of work and some of it is already on our website. And at the moment, somebody is making a PowerPoint how to answer a question on the Empress. They're making that now, and a knowledge organiser is being made. But I think it would be fantastic if more people chose to do that. So also, I'm at the moment doing Boys Don't Cry and Coram Boy knowledge organisers, and I just wanted to say that both books actually impressed me as really good opportunities to discuss wider issues. Coram Boy, particularly on the slavery aspect, really interesting. I found I was going off on tangents and looking at background myself. And Boys Don't Cry is a brilliant platform to talk about teenage issues and growing up. It's also brilliant because it's only incidental that the family are black, which is great. So it's great to see sort of other areas being addressed rather than just the ethnicity on that one. Or what were the books called? Somebody's put there. I'm not sure which books you mean, Liz. Oh, Boys Don't Cry, perhaps you mean, in Coram Boy. They are, perhaps Pam or Liz could just pop that in the group chat now, just so that people have got that. Coming soon, you keep one thing, a focus on teaching structure, and I have got one little tip for you, so that'll be coming in one of the next webinars. Okay, great. If we can go to these check-in questions. I just wanted to check in. I'm back at school now. I'm just doing 1 day a week with Year 10, but if you could answer these questions, which of the restrictions imposed upon schools do you think will have the most impact on your teaching? I found that it wasn't what I expected this week. And can you think of any benefits that might come from the restrictions? I.e., for me, I am teaching only up to 10 students in a very large room with them a long way away from me. And they're not my usual students. They're not in my year 10 class. They're a separate bubble. So I just wanted to see what everybody else was doing while I drink my tea. Not being able to mark work. Yeah, I totally agree. I can't touch anything the students have touched. Yeah. Unable to print resources. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If we do it, they have to be put out the day before. No group work, 2 meter distancing. Yeah. But on the benefit side, people are saying the small classes has a benefit. I agree. Small groups allow more focus. Yeah, again, smaller classes. Interestingly, I had students say to me that they quite liked working at home if they could come in and check that what they were doing was okay. That was interesting. Not being able to go near students, not being able to look at individual writing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Focusing on hard to reach first. Just 5 sleepy students. Yeah. And it was as though I was teaching myself. Me too, Jenny. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it changed the whole dynamics. It was almost as if, I don't know if anybody agrees with this, that they didn't know how to behave because it was a different environment. They hadn't yet learned how to negotiate and how to behave in that scenario, which I thought was really interesting. Students who are reluctant to talk spoke more. Yeah, good thinking. Yeah. We've done group work in teams. Some of it's been great. Podcast. That's interesting, Nick. Yeah. Lack of structure at home. Okay, well, we'll move on from that, but you do get a copy of we can get you a copy of the chat, so it's interesting to see what people's issues are. Okay, if we can move away from that then, thank you very much. Thanks. So I think we're all thinking of the same things there. We're all having the same restrictions and feeling the same. I felt it was weird, and it wasn't obviously what I went into teaching for. I found it really, I had to learn new rules as well as them, so I think that's interesting. And I had a mixture of some students who thought that that would be good if they could then go away and do the work because they liked the just the eight students in the class. So that was interesting. Okay, let's move on then and look at what I've got for you this week. Online resources, starting with. A very nice guy that I follow on Twitter called Douglas White has made retrieval question generators for Inspector calls and several other texts. 100 questions in total, and they're easy to adapt. It comes up as an Excel spreadsheet, so that's a useful one for you. It's very well worth looking at, and he doesn't mind me sharing that. This is something I'm coming back to in a moment. This is James Walla, and I haven't been in touch with him and asked him whether he minded me sharing this, and he didn't. That link will take you to his blog post about multiple choice. Now, it strikes me, I found out over the last couple of weeks that multiple choice was a really good way to engage students. And as I said already, I got 80% engagement on multiple choice on Jekyll and Hyde versus 50% when I asked them to send in their long form answers. And I'm going to share some tips from James's website and also my own tips for how to do multiple choice later on. But it's been really useful. This is a really good offer, Greenshaw Learning Trust. If you haven't followed them before, they're literally offering free access to 10 weeks of secondary remote curriculum. And it literally is 900 online lessons, all with voiceovers. So for any subject, it's fantastic. So it's worth a look. This is something that National Writing Day is coming up next week, next Wednesday. And because I've got Chris Curtis on next week, I wasn't doing something about it. But this 24/7 challenge is brilliant. You write a 24-word story or poem in just 7 minutes. I'm sure some of you have seen it already on Twitter, but there's been some great examples. And it struck me that that's a really lovely thing to do in remote learning because it's short. You can do as much or as little of it as possible. And even if they just sent you in one that they'd done, they could have done several and chosen the best. So I thought that'd be great fun. You could give them a theme or not. They could record it, all sorts of things. I thought it was a great idea. And then topically here, this Twitter link, comment lit, there's 50 plus texts for talking about race. So that's a really good one to have a look at. And also, if you didn't see it, just after the events in Bristol, a local poet called Vanessa, and I presume it's Kiss Yule. I really apologise to her if I haven't pronounced her name correctly. But she wrote a poem, and it's absolutely fantastic. And she recorded it, and I saw it on Twitter. And, oh, somebody said she's great, yeah. Somebody Jennifer Webb has asked her if she could transcribe it, and so it's on Jennifer Webb's blog as well. But that link will take you through to the poem. It's brilliant. It's got loads of, yeah, it is. Nick says it's great poem, great performance. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so it's really worth having a look at that, and using her in a lesson. And she's very approachable as well, so that would be brilliant. Okay, let's get into literature ideas and resources then. Now, if you've seen my webinars before, you'll be used to the fact that I'm not that keen on teaching context in advance of teaching a text. I prefer it to be a little bit more organic. I find that context otherwise is just dumped down and not understood. So I worked hard to try and find a way to make it more organic and linked to the text more, rather than just being a history lesson. So this one is for Boys Don't Cry, but I haven't used this in the classroom yet, but I'm about to. But I have used this very same idea for Inspector Calls and Jekyll and Hyde. So what I've done here is to put 9 things in a box. So for instance, I've got a headline from The Guardian, is masculinity in crisis, men or mice? And what I would expect them to do is to actually have that in the middle of an A3 page and link that in some way to the text. They don't necessarily need to read the article, it's just a prompt. And I wouldn't give them any other background than this. So I might read a couple of chapters of the book, or give them an outline of the novel, and then give them this, rather than actually overtly teaching context. And I found that's worked much better than giving them it. So the idea that educational performance appears to be one of the main barriers which stop people moving out of poverty, that's the top middle box. That links to Boys Don't Cry, because Dante, the main protagonist, comes from a single parent family, and yet he's just achieved 4 A-levels at A-star and has a place at university. So it's just a discussion point. They can see how they can link it, rather than actually telling them something. You're asking them to link it themselves. So it's much more successful. And the bottom left-hand corner, in 1995, Guinness had been due to run a commercial directed by Tony Gay featuring 2 men kissing to the sound of Tammy Wynette's Stand By Your Man, and it was cancelled, actually. So that idea then of one of the brothers in the book, Boys Don't Cry, is openly gay and quite comfortable with it. So it's that idea of how things have changed, actually. So I would really recommend Boys Don't Cry, actually. I've got it somewhere here on my desk. It really is worth it. Even if you don't do it at GCSE, it would make a fabulous read for year 9. There's a lot of effort, a lot of important issues, I think, to teenagers. But that was just an idea to be adapted for other texts. And my advice being that don't overtly teach context, allow it to grow organically. And I think that also actually privileges students, because they can also add their own ideas to it. So Black Lives Matter, what does that mean to them? What do they know already? Rather than telling them something and telling them the link. I'm doing it the other way around. I'm giving them the context and they have to make the link. So it's worked really well, and I'm hoping it will do for Boys Don't Cry as well. Probably better, because the context will be more interesting to them. So this is the theme for a couple of slides, is valuing students' prior knowledge. Again, with context, what we tend to do is to teach it. So it occurred to me that we ought to privilege what they know. I use it a lot in writing tasks as well. I find that they write in a very sterile classroom, I'm writing for a teacher way. And yet I say to them, but you have all that stuff in your life and you haven't bothered to include it in your letter and your article, oh, I didn't know I could. So I wanted to find a way to value them. And again, this comes from the marvellous Barbara's book, What Matters in English Teaching. I went on one of her CPD sessions a couple of weeks ago, and she was very much of the opinion that we should value students' prior knowledge. So this is one that I've done for an Inspector Calls. And I did do this last year, actually, in a slightly different format. But what do you already know about these things? That enables you to handle any misunderstandings, but also to find out what they know to start with, instead of just telling them. And it really does make them feel more important and more, they've already bought into the text, that they feel they're bringing something to the party, as it were. So that was very powerful. And again, I've done one in advance for Boys Don't Cry. because particularly with a modern novel, they are going to have some experience and knowledge. So don't let's tell them something. Let's let them relate the book to their personal feelings, because what we want is a personal interpretation. So we should be allowing them to do it. So here you go. There's 4 things they would definitely already have experience of. And I've also included there, in case you haven't got the idea that I'm trying to push you into Boys Don't Cry, because I think it's a great text to use in the classroom, there is a link to the trailer there, which is a trailer for a book which I haven't seen before, and it's a little acting out of the beginning of the book, which is quite useful. Jenny says this links quite well to our new approach to teaching poetry, generating students' personal responses first and then fill in the gaps. That's what I like. Let's find out what they know, dispel any misunderstandings and build on that, rather than telling something that then just comes out like the sinking of the bloody Titanic and sinks like the Titanic every time. Okay, so another idea on the same theme is the whole idea of vocabulary is not bombarding them with this tricky vocabulary. Last week I talked about reading, how we don't necessarily need to get them to understand every word. And in particular with some of the novels like Jekyll and Hyde and A Christmas Carol, there will be vocabulary in there that is so specific to the book or the era that actually it's not really going to help them to learn it. So I wanted to work with vocabulary that would expand their knowledge of the book. So I came up with this, but this is for Coram Boy. So again, the idea of learning or getting across context without bombarding them with flat knowledge, with kind of dry knowledge, was to give them a grid like this. And I have done it with another book. This is one I'm building up for something I'm writing for Coram Boy. But just to give them these 9 terms. A, what do they know? Do they understand the term? What do they think the aristocracy is? What do they think the arts are? And what's meant by vulnerability? And then you can use that at various stages of the book to say, right, let's go back to our 9 words now and see how we can link to vulnerability and what it was like to be vulnerable at the time the book was set, as opposed to now. So again, it's using it much more in a much more alive way. Nick says, I'm doing noughts and crosses. It's become even more relevant as we go. Yeah, absolutely, it has, totally, yeah. The interesting thing about Boys Don't Cry, as opposed to noughts and crosses, that I really like, is noughts and crosses was the first series she wrote where their ethnicity was in the foreground. Before, she had just allowed it to be not really important. And that's what the thing with Boys Don't Cry is you don't even realise till halfway through. And yeah, I agree, it gives them ownership. You know, even owning knowledge about oppression and owning the word and understanding what it means to them and how that differs to what it means in the book means their links to context are so much more relevant and useful. Okay, so that was that one. Another one, moving on a stage, I've done this remotely, is I didn't say discuss, I put which statement would you most like to work on next week. So again, giving them some choice, but whilst also surreptitiously expanding their knowledge, because these are old statements about Jekyll and Hyde that will make them think, like how does a wise man keeps his own counsel linked to the book. So I gave them those, granted it is a top set, 1 week, and I said, which of those would you like to work on in the next session? So if we were live at school, I would give this for homework, and then they would choose which one they wanted to discuss. But again, it's taking the mystery away and helping them, giving them an element of choice and more ownership, whilst also expanding their knowledge. So they were some ideas there that what I wanted to do there was to put across the idea of valuing what students can bring and valuing students' contribution, rather than as just teaching them. It's much more effective to build on what they already know, and then it becomes a lot more relevant to them. Okay, now another quick thing that has been very useful to me, and it's not a new thing, but just something I wanted to remind you of to do as a remote activity. My school now, we're moving away from overt teaching on the English front because we're finding that we're not getting enough engagement. So teaching a whole text like Jekyll and Hyde is going to mean half of them haven't done it at all when we do eventually go back. So we're moving back to the texts we've covered and covering them in more detail. So this is my first task for Macbeth, and it is the plot in 50 words. Okay, so this is one done by a student. And what was great was when I did this, and I said, all of you have to do the plot in 50 words, it makes them really think about it. They have to count the words out or do it on a computer. But it was brilliant then. I only got half of them, but I got 15, I think, answers across 2 classes, and they were all different. So it was great. So next week, what I'm going to do, and here's another one that is slightly different. So next week, I will choose 2 that I think are great, and I will say which one is the best, or which one links to this theme, or which one links to that theme. So there's loads you can do with this if you do it in the classroom or remotely, because it's obviously revision, easy revision actually. What did they miss out? Add 3 more events, add 10 more words. There's just stacks of stuff you can do with this. Which is the most effective? Which one would you use to cover this theme, etc. So there's loads of things you can do there. I say not new, but easy to do remotely. Okay, let me think what else. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, going too far. Right, note taking. I covered this a little bit last week, but I just wanted to do it again. I went to a lovely school up in Penrith in February. It seems like ages ago now. And in fact, the snow was so bad that we thought the school might be closed, but it wasn't. It was lovely. It was for a GCSE network meeting. And one of the teachers, we were talking about how to teach a text in a short space of time. And that obviously will be hugely relevant now. And one of the teachers said when the kids came back, they had absolutely no memory of Jekyll and Hyde. So they did it in a cold read, straight through, in 10 lessons, I think. They literally read the book, and the students took Cornell Note, they used the Cornell note-taking method. And Sharon's put, I love Cornell Notes, kids do. When I tried this in the classroom, I found it was probably one of the most successful things I've ever done. The students felt valued, they felt important, they felt grown up. One of them had seen an elder sibling do it for university notes. It was amazing, and they own it, and they can have a little book of 10 sheets of these for Jekyll and Hyde or whatever. And yeah, as Sharon says, important to explicitly teach how to make them. Absolutely, you do have to do almost a whole lesson and model how to do it. But it is a fantastic idea. It's nothing new. It's obviously been around since Cornell invented it. But seriously, I found it really powerful. And then they've got revision. You can discuss things while at the end of the lesson. And I found if you are doing Jekyll and Hyde that it was quite easy to get through it in that short space of time. But it also can be used for remote and independent learning. Once they've learned how to do them, then they can do it for homework. It doesn't patronise either. It can be adapted and differentiated. And I think also the important thing is it can have as much or as little on. And what it also does is allows them, I think this is a really important thing that I often don't take account of because I overteach, is that it allows them to work with what they understood from the chapter and what they can get something out of. And I think that's a really important thing. Jenny says, do we order these pads? Oh, I don't know if you can. I made them myself, and this school made them themselves. If you look online, if you just Google Cornell Notes, you'll find loads of different versions of them. These are quite basic compared to the sort of university style. But what it's got is, at the top is a 50-word interpretation, and at the bottom is a summary. I did it the other way around. I did do a 50-word summary of the chapter at the top, and at the bottom I did links. So I think you can make it however you want, okay, for whatever suits you. This is another method that I showed you last week. I called it reading notes when I did it a while ago, and I just did it like that. But calling them Cornell Notes makes them sound so much posher, and you can show students examples from universities on the board. And then I did that. That was another way of doing it, but that was with a weaker class. Whereas the Cornell Notes are really asking you to make the links down the side, and anybody who likes colour coding is in their element. So that's a really useful idea that I can be remote or classroom based. So let's get on to what I think is going to be most effective for your remote learning. And it's something you might be doing already, but it's multi-choice questions. And I've put MQC and it should be MCQ. I realised that, sorry. I was thinking, what does that mean? Now, this is from lovely James Walla's website, his blog. And I give you the link at the beginning of this PowerPoint. He didn't mind me sharing it at all. But this is a good example to use because his view is that you can start off, you can make multi-choice questions as easy and accessible. You know, what colour coat was he wearing? Or you can make them analytical. And you can actually remotely teach through them. So here he's got the description of Macbeth's barren sceptre contributes to the unity of the passage in which of the following ways. And then he's got 4 answers that are analytical. So there's a parallel between Macbeth's possible children and Banquo's possible children, as a satirical comment on challenges Macbeth will face with infertility, etc. And what you can do with questions like that is you can also do you can do them where there's no wrong answer. My show my homework system that we use at our school doesn't allow me to do that. There has to be a right answer, which is a shame. But you can do it where which of the following is the most, do you think is the most applicable or it best explains? Okay, so what's happening there is that they're reading various ideas and they really have to think about it. It's not just like, oh, his coat's red. It actually becomes a meaningful learning process. And here's one that comes from Show My Homework that I've done. I did as my first one. You won't be able to read it terribly well, I appreciate. And the X's are where the right answers. My Show My Homework, if you use it, only allows me to put four wrong answers in, I think. And I do a choice of 3. But I started off with a very obvious one, who visits Utterson? Now, because I haven't seen the students, I made the very first multi-choice quiz I did very easy, and I've ramped them up without actually telling them. And now my questions sort of 6 to 10 are analytical. They are things like I make an analytical point and then say which quotation would best suit this, or I use a quotation and ask for an explanation, or I make a point and ask for a piece of plot to go with it. So I make it analytical. And it's worked very well. My engagement has gone up hugely. Okay, so that's an interesting way of doing it. And James has put on his blog one using the poem Nettles. I know you can't read that very well, but it's if you go onto his blog, you'll find it there as a demonstration. And what I wrote was, just to summarize, I wrote some multi-choice questions. I've got it the right way around this time. Rules. So I think it's important to start with basic retrieval or simple knowledge to build up. Make an analytical point and ask students to select the most appropriate from 3 or 4 quotations. Make questions evaluative. Students have to weigh up the best option. That's been really successful for me because it's meant that students have to read each one in detail. Use some common mistakes as answers. That's worked well as well. So long quotations, feature spotting, I put as an answer because it's personification and makes it relatable. And as predicted, at least one student chose that as their answer. Use it for advanced vocabulary definitions. Finish with analytical questions that ask students to select the best or most detailed explanation. But importantly, don't worry how many times they attempt the quiz. On Show My Homework, they can have 3 goes. And it was interesting for me to see how many had taken the 3 goes. And frankly, even if they're coming to it cold and just doing the quiz rather than reading the chapter properly, at least they're learning something, which for me has been better than the nothing that they have been getting. And then use the last question as a discussion. Invite them to argue with your right answer. So that's worked well for me in the last one. I put it as a which one do you like? And if you get it wrong, don't worry. You can write to me, email me and argue that my right answer is wrong. I only got about 10 of them doing that, but again, that was more than I was getting on my previous task. They quite liked the idea that they were cleverer than me and that I was wrong, okay? So, okay, so that was a multi-choice questions. Everybody all right so far? Not much chat this week. Let's move on then to the final one. I don't know why I've got it in this order because this is not relevant, is not a multi-choice question thing. It's just a lovely resource that I found and adapted from this lovely book again. It's a poem in there. Oh, Sharon says, this is so useful, Julie. Oh, good. Really helpful. Brilliant. And this is actually the last of my resources for today. And I've made a spelling error or typing error because I couldn't see it very well. The name of this poem should start with a Q, and I think it's pronounced Complage-les-Pins, and it is a town in Picardy. And I think that means beach by the pines. Now, going back to my earlier point about valuing students' contributions, I get disappointed sometimes with the way poetry is taught or the way I have taught it. I'm disappointed in my own teaching in it because I overteach it and I don't value what the students have to say. And I was disappointed this week at school when I asked them which of the areas they liked about English and which they didn't like, that they didn't like poetry because it was hard and boring, which I was disappointed with. And I wondered whether that was because they feel they need to have the right answer. Often they do better on the unseen poetry. So this was a way of teaching poetry remotely that I came up with, and I was going to use it this week. So just simple questions like, what are your first thoughts? What puzzles or intrigues you about the poem? What do you like about it? Does it remind you of anything? But can you think of somewhere else that would be beautiful if you didn't visit it? It's a lovely poem. This place would be beautiful if it didn't exist. And then transform the poem into something else. So it's a great poem anyway to use for unseen. But also I think you could teach small parts perhaps of anthology poetry this way and at least get the students' initial responses, because I think teaching poetry remotely is very hard. But I think this is less threatening. This is a way of valuing what they've got to say. And Barbara's point in the book is that generally when we teach it, we'd probably, and she's got an example here, she says, you might be tempted to tell them in advance what a pine is, what dunes are, what tenacious means, what pennants are, what crepes are, where the place is. You might even pre-teach literary and linguistic terms like syndetic and asyndetic, caesura, alliteration, assonance, etc. But do you need to? And is that really what the poet wanted? No, the poet wanted some engagement. It's a beautiful poem, this, and it would be spoilt by giving it too much. And the whole idea of places that are beautiful before we got there is just lovely. And it wouldn't need a name, it wouldn't need it's just beautiful. So that was just a thought really to end on, is let's start valuing what our students have to say a bit more. And I'm certainly going to do that and not overteach on the poetry. And I was trying to find a way, because that's what I've been asked to do, to effectively remote teaching poetry this week. Rosa says, I think because the focus is language and structure in the exam, we tend to focus on that. I think we do. I agree. But I think maybe we need to try and, particularly remotely, to have a poem. I mean, I would feel threatened if somebody sent me a poem and said, here you go, and they've annotated it, and then answer a question. But what about if somebody just said, what do you reckon? Then I would feel less threatened. I mean, I've been in, I'm sure we all have, in training courses where you get into a group and discuss a poem you've never seen before, and it's frightening for us, and we're teachers. So the whole idea of let's remember that's what it's like for us, and have a go, just have a go. Tell me 3 things about it is the classic. And I find that works much better. So that was that really. And that was the end of my resources. I think we're going to go for a break now. So you're going to get a chance to discuss it. Time has flown by. It has. Yeah, thank you for another inspiring webinar. Well, we're going to get in groups now. I want your thoughts on those. So your thoughts on multi-choice, your thoughts on what you would do with multi-choice questions, perhaps, or the poetry idea, or indeed how other ideas, ways in which we can value what students bring to the party. Okay, so we're going to go into, if you haven't been with us before, you will be put into a breakout group. There will be a Pearson person, either myself or Pam or Liz, in the group with you, and we will get just to discuss generally. Okay, so let's go. Hi, okay, so we're joined by Pam and Liz now.
Hello.
So which one wants to start? Who wants to start?
Shall I go first, or I don't mind?
Pam, here you go.
You sure? Okay. A lot of people were saying, people were saying about the multiple choice question idea. They haven't really thought about using that in as much, in the same way that we've talked about on here and you've talked about before and today. So that's good. People were asking about Key Stage 3 text, and Anthony said about the lark. I think he said it won a Carnegie Prize. I can't remember. I think that's what he said. Also, Sarah mentioned the smart recorder app. Have you heard of that, Julie?
I haven't, no.
Well,
I'll
it
make a
sounds
note of
to me like that would be a really good thing to use. I don't know. We don't know if it's certain schools, if you buy into it or what it is. I'm not 100% sure. Somebody probably put in the chat in a minute. There we are, smart software. Oh, like this.
Yeah.
Of course, I get it now. Sorry, I recognise it when I see it in capitals. And what it basically is it records a video of the page you're looking at when you're marking it, and you talk about the feedback you're giving them at the same time. I'm
Oh, that's a good idea.
having to write loads and loads. So yeah, I think that's quite a good idea. Catherine said,
Excellent.
your laptop. Also, on another note, people were saying that's I think it was Sarah again who said 90% of students for year 11 and 12 turned up this week, and they were really sort of engaged and glad to be back. So yeah, so it's
Good,
isn't it?
Liz, what about you?
We talked a lot about poetry. One teacher said that they learn a lot from their students, so they always make new comments each time. So that was lovely. That's really nice. And some themes running through of showing and telling from your own life, so using objects, taking in photos and pictures to do.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. So that was really good. And then Liz mentioned an identity workshop by Cecilia Knapp, which is on the National Writing Day website. It's 1 hour and it's for years 10 and 11. It's about identity. So that was recommended in our group as well.
Excellent. Lovely, thanks. Well, people in my breakout room were liking the Cornell Notes, and one person had used
we had that as well.
flipped learning, where they taught them how to do Cornell Notes, and the homework was to watch one of those lovely Mr. Bruff videos, make notes, and come in with it the next lesson, which I thought was a good idea.
That is a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Another idea was the using that 24/7 story writing thing I mentioned at the beginning. Would be a good idea to use that about a lit text. So 247 about a text you're studying. So somebody said it would be good for Boys Don't Cry. The other one was to use Google Forms for multi-choice questioning, because that enabled you to
do it easier,
to tailor, and to tailor it as well. So yeah, lots of great ideas actually. I always worry that nobody's going to have anything to say, but they always do.
Oh, plenty of ideas. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So that's great. Thank you. So shall we move on from that? Oh, so Rosa says these sessions make my week. Oh, thank you. That's lovely. They do for Pam and I, actually. I mean, we never meet. We've never met, have we?
No.
We have really, but we see each other once a week on here. It's really rather lovely, actually. That's nice.
Thank God for the virtual world, hey?
Thank God for it. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Over to you then for a couple of slides. Just tell me when to move on and I will.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's not much to say this week. I have to say we're a bit thin on the ground with people sharing resources. Come on now, we need to get these resources in. But one of the resources this week, which was really good, was from Sarah S. I don't know if Sarah's here. And it was a reading plan. This is what she called it. It's called a reading plan for the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And it's going to be put up on the, well, there's the webinar link on the slide there. It'll be on there. And it's year 7 and year 8 to do over the summer, really. And
great.
Yeah, it's good because it goes through the different stories, the Sherlock Holmes stories, and there's links to where they can read the stories or whether they can see the stories online. And then there's tasks with each story for them to do each time that, over the weeks or whatever. So yeah, I think it's good. I like it. So get that put on the website. Yeah, definitely. But like I say, the more people send things in, the better it is. And also, don't forget, it's the £25 draw next week. So see if you can send your things in and you might end up winning the £25. You never know.
Do I get to go in it?
No, Julie, you can't. That's just no. We'd be accused of cheating then, so we can't do that.
There you go then.
Okay, so as I said, fortnightly, so that's next week. If you wouldn't mind just flipping to the next slide. I don't know if I can do it. Let me. Oh, there we go. Okay, so but we do have the draw this week for the feedback survey. And here we go, my little cup, as you all
do the feedback. If you haven't been with us before, if you do the feedback at the end, then you're entered into the draw for the £10 voucher every week. Let's hope the person is here.
Yes, that's it. And also, you need to do it because it helps us know what you want from us, sort of thing, isn't it, Julie? It gives us the feedback. And the winner is, you can't see that, but it's Karen D. I don't know. I think that's Karen there, actually.
Oh, Oh, is Karen with us?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Karen. Yes.
There she is.
Oh,
How
Karen.
sneaky is that?
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully
So,
you've
Karen,
got the
you've
same.
won the £10 voucher, which will be winging its way to you via email. So, well done on that one. And all you've got to do is just fill in the survey at the end, and you get a chance to get pulled out of the draw and win a tenner. And you can buy whatever you want from Amazon, a book, or I don't know, whatever you want. Who knows?
Well done, Karen. Yeah.
So, yes, that's brilliant.
Right. Nick says my internet dropped last week. Wouldn't do the feedback. It was excellent. No, thank you. And Sharon says my first one, and it's the best one I've attended. So as Elizabeth said, if you haven't been before, you can go back and either just look at the slides, or you can see the whole recording. Okay, so you can go back on. I won't ever. I don't like watching them, watching myself on it. But go, by all means, share it with other people in your department if you need to.
Is Karen here?
Okay,
Because sorry, Judy, I was going to say, I'm sure Karen was here. I just saw her name, so she hasn't commented, but I think she's, yeah, I'll send it. She'll get that anyway, but yeah, so she's here, which is good. Okay, sorry, I'm going to shut up now and let you carry on.
Right, further dates then. Obviously, we've got the marvellous Chris Curtis with us next week, and we know what we're going to ask him about, so that's brilliant. The week after that will be the last literature one for this school year. Then on the 9th, it's really exciting. We're going to focus on diversity in literature, and we've got Benjamin Zephaniah with us, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. So Rosa says, wow, so please spread the word.
Yeah,
we will have capacity for 500 people. So
That is gonna
please,
be
it won't
amazing.
be exam board specific. It's open to anybody. It doesn't have to be just, it doesn't have to be just Edexcel. So everybody can see everybody's really excited about that. So I'm excited about it. It's going to be fantastic.
Can I just say as well,
Okay,
we've already got sorry, Julie, to interrupt you again. We've already got 160 people booked on for that. So the sooner you get booked onto it, the better. And like Julie said, spread the word to your other English teaching colleagues, whichever school, wherever they are. That'd be great.
But make sure you get booked on before you spread the word to them, because we don't. I really want the regular people to have the opportunity to come on it. So that would be fantastic. If you've been regularly with us the whole time and it's already booked up, maybe drop us an email. Because I would hate that regular people to be missed off. But anyway, that's the exciting news. 16th of July for the language.
Sorry, Julie, again. I know I'm interrupting you. Sorry. Sam has just reminded us that the WhatsApp link as well. That'll be at the end if you want to go on the WhatsApp group.
Yes, I was going to put that on the end. Yeah. There's a couple of other dates as well. Wednesday, June the 24th. If you do A level with us, or you have another teacher in your department who does, then a lady called Esther Menon, who is an English consultant and teacher who does a lot of work on our exam side, she's going to run a webinar on the planning and pitfalls of coursework. So that's A level English literature, and that's Wednesday, June the 24th. Okay. There's also on Wednesday, July the 8th, there's another A level poetry specific one. They're all on our website. Okay. And as well, I'm going to be doing, lots of dates for you, and I'll remind you next week. But on the 14th of July, I'm going to be doing a special session for NQTs. So if you know any NQTs, then do please let them know. We will be advertising that. And on the 15th of July, I'm going to do one just for heads of department. So if you're a head of department, and that'll be more about just sharing ideas, really, that head of department event. All right. So that's 14th of July NQT, 15th of July head of department, and obviously 9th of July is Benjamin Zephaniah. So if you need to go on our website and just book everything, okay, before you miss out. So I hope to see you next week, and let's move on quickly. Oh, they are. There was the next slide, Pam. I didn't realise. Silly me. There you go. Oops. Free online lessons for year 10. We're about halfway through with that. They're going brilliantly. We're having loads of people on that. They are available to view, but what is useful is you can just download the slides. Okay, and the slides are fantastic. So have a look at those. They're running at the moment. There's the usual link. And then on our diverse text, more of which obviously they'll be featured again on the 9th of July. Can you help with research? What's been your experience? I've already done that and had a little chat with somebody about that. And heads of department across any subjects as well. I would be very much appreciated on that one. Subject advisor, Claire, as usual, switching to Edexcel in case you want to, you're not with us or you want more information. And then we end on the feedback. And just, there's a link, the second link there is to our WhatsApp group, okay? I'm on that. So if you wanted to get in touch with me, if there was something that you wanted to ask me specifically, you can do on there. Otherwise, it's just a chat with other teachers, and so far people have shared things. It's been really useful. And Jenny says, thanks EdXL for providing so well for our needs. That's great. And please bear in mind, I just want to end on the note that obviously, as I said at the beginning, we really are thinking about the future and what you might need. But at the moment, as my school has found, there's no point rushing away and planning things and thinking about things until we know. And at the moment, nobody knows. You know, I may as well ask my next door neighbour. There's nobody knows what's going to happen. But you can rest assured that we'll be here. And the minute we know, we'll respond to it as soon as we can and help you out. Okay. That's it from me. Lovely to see you all again. I will hope to see you next week with Chris Curtis. And Pam just says, lovely to hear the nice comments and that from me as well. Please do your feedback and then you're in for the 10 quid. Okay. Thanks very much. And I'll see you. Bye.